and some of it began in Pretoria today, where the Pretoria to Mapopane line is now back in action after 2 years. And 2 stations were also refurbished and showed off, basically, in Cape Town. So what are the plans and timelines does the Department of Transport have in place for our ailing railway system? Let's hear from Lawrence Venkile, who's the spokesperson for the Transport Minister. Lawrence, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So we've made some headway, and I think it is something we should celebrate. Question is, how long before we see more being done? Lawrence, I think you muted yourself. Unmute for us, please. No. There you go. There you go.
We have been working tirelessly around the clock with PRASA and other organs of state to ensure that we're able to bring back to service our commuter rail system that was severely affected by theft and vandalism post the restrictions to traveling in the last year. In relation to the timelines, we have ensured that the 10 priority corridors get priority. Some of those would be finalized by the end of this financial year, which is by the end of March, and the number of these corridors would all be back in operation by the end of the 22-23 financial year. As you have seen today, a number of corridors have been reopened. An example is that in the Western Cape, out of the 7 corridors, 5 of them are back into operation, and the stations have been finalized. A number of the stations, not all of them by all means, and we've also started the deployment of the new trains to replace the old fleet that has been ailing, and that has been a cause of many breakdowns in the system. So the timelines, for example, one of the biggest corridors and the busiest in the country, the Mapopane corridor and the central line in Cape Town, which are part of the presidential flagship projects. We are now, the minister will be unveiling on Wednesday the operations in the Mapopane corridor and also showcasing the infrastructure upgrades that have been done. The same is happening with the central line in Cape Town to make sure that we return it to service and our people are able to then access the rail service.
All right, so we're showing a brand new train in Pretoria on our screens, and it looks pretty nice. But now the question of security has to come at play here, right? The security model and plans, which the minister said include intelligence services as well. Is that enough, do you believe, to actually protect our railways?
It's not enough, Shahan, and the reason we're saying that is that we are working very closely with the SAPS to ensure that the model of railway policing, you'll remember that a couple of years ago, railway police were brought back into system, but we continue to have the challenge of capacity on the part of SAPS. But also part of it is that, you know, that we're insourcing security, but part of that is that we need to ensure that the culprits who get involved in theft and vandalism on the network face the might of the law, and therefore the role of the railway police cannot be overemphasized, and the resourcing of that capacity. But also the railway safety regulator is working with us in terms of ensuring that we refine the model such that the security is not just about the people who use the trains, but also about the infrastructure, the totality of the infrastructure, whether you're talking track or you're talking the trains. But also part of the projects that are being rolled out is the fencing in of the 3,600 kilometers of the PRASA network across the country. In some areas, we'll actually be putting up walls to protect the infrastructure in a similar manner that you see with the How train, so that it's not easy to get access into the system.
Yeah. So you know what worries me, because when I ask you whether the security measures, which is also working with intelligence services, whether it's enough, you say it's not enough. So what happens then? Why are we putting on these new trains, we're improving infrastructure, railway lines, etc., when we can't safeguard it? And we're admitting that.
Well, when we're saying it is not enough, I'm talking from a resourcing point of view. In terms of the model of a model where we work together with intelligence and the police, that is the right thing to do and the right way. But I'm saying not enough in the sense that we're continuing to mobilize and pull together resources to ensure that we have enough boots on the ground inside the trains, right in the network. And that's part of the reason why we are having conversations with the SAPS to ensure that the entirety of the network is policed. You know that they have the rapid rail police. And a couple of years ago, PRASA themselves paid for a number of upgrades of police stations that are within the station precincts. So it is in that context we continue to engage with National Treasury, to engage with the police to ensure that we have sufficient boots on the ground. But the model itself, we believe that that model is the future and will enable us to protect the environment and not to have a repeat of what has happened in the recent past.
All right, let's move on to the infrastructure. I know you say that the minister is going to make some announcements on that later on, but just reading up on the impact this poor infrastructure has had on the economy is quite shocking, because experts say South Africa's trade surplus narrowed noticeably to 455 billion rand in the third quarter of 2021 from 582 billion in the second quarter, and that's of course as a result of countries not being able to rail in and export goods to South Africa. So how soon can we see improved changes being done to the railway system in order for us to actually make money? Because we need it. We know that our economy is struggling right now.
Part of the interventions, Shahan, is that the minister has decided that we need to ensure that the entities within the transport environment, for example, if PRASA is having difficulty in spending its capex budget because of engineering or project management capability, we have sister entities like your SANRAL and your AXA that have that capability. We're going to see a much more closer collaboration among state entities and cross-pollination, such that we unlock that, because that investment is what increases the contribution of the transport sector to the GDP of the country. And therefore, we have to unlock that. So we are starting immediately. We're not waiting for a new financial year, because that money is there. That modernization program needs to get underway. Those trains need to come out of the factory in Niger and get into the system. And we need to be able to start exporting those trains that we're manufacturing, which will be manufacturing for the rest of the continent. And therefore, we believe that we are in a position to start unlocking those bottlenecks, which would then increase the contribution of the transport sector into the GDP higher than the 0.4 that it currently contributes.
All right, I hope we get it right. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. Lawrence Venkile, Special Advisor to the Transport Minister.